Hey everyone, I'm on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I'd love your help to get there. If you're enjoying the content, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and join the family.
When Nike makes a move, it's never just about business. It's about legacy. And this time, that familiar swoosh sent shockwaves through the entire football world. The brand that built icons, the same company that turned names like Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron into global empires, just made its boldest statement yet. Nike has officially cut ties with Dillon Gabriel, terminating every promotional arrangement, canceling shoots, shelving his custom cleat design, and in the very same breath, they've gone all in on Shedeur Sanders. Not next season, not eventually, right now. This isn't a normal endorsement switch. This is a declaration, a public verdict on who represents the future of the NFL and who's being quietly written out of it. For years, Nike's marketing machine has revolved around one idea. Excellence isn't told, it's seen. And after months of tension, one humiliating game, and a franchise in turmoil, Nike decided that Shedeur Sanders embodies everything their brand stands for: discipline, confidence, control, and undeniable star power. To outsiders, it might look like a business move, a strategic reshuffle after a bad stretch. But to those who understand the weight of a Nike deal, this is something much deeper. It's a torch passing, a signal to fans, franchises, and the league itself that the next face of football has already arrived. And the stunning part? This all unfolded in real time, while the Cleveland Browns were still trying to figure out who their starting quarterback even was. Because when the swoosh speaks, it doesn't whisper, it declares. And this time, its message was clear. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for the future, he is the future. It all started on a night that was supposed to define Dillon Gabriel's rise, but instead, it exposed everything crumbling beneath the surface. Under the blinding lights of primetime, Cleveland's divisional showdown turned from a proving ground into a public unraveling. Gabriel walked onto that field with pressure mounting from every direction. Media expectations, locker room whispers, and a restless fan base desperate for hope. 90 minutes later, he walked off as the face of disaster. 2 fumbles, 3 interceptions, missed reads, miscommunication. Every mistake seemed to compound on the next, creating the kind of live meltdown you could almost feel through the broadcast. The crowd grew restless, commentators ran out of excuses, and what started as frustration turned into disbelief. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. Something far bigger than just another bad game. At Nike's Beaverton headquarters, a small group of brand strategists were watching every snap, every reaction, every sideline shot. Not as fans, but as analysts. They weren't just evaluating a player, they were evaluating a brand asset. Gabriel wasn't just Cleveland's quarterback. He was tied to Nike's image of confidence, leadership, and control. And in that one brutal game, every piece of that image cracked in full view of the nation. By the time the final whistle blew, analysts on TV were already calling it one of the worst primetime performances of the season. Social media was unforgiving. The memes spread faster than the highlights ever did. And as Gabriel faced cameras post-game, searching for answers, Nike's internal chat rooms were already buzzing with urgency. The collapse wasn't just athletic, it was commercial. Their quarterback had become a liability to the brand's story of dominance and composure. What fans didn't realize that night was that Nike had seen enough. That loss didn't just sink Cleveland's playoff hopes, it triggered one of the fastest and most ruthless corporate pivots in recent memory. Because while Gabriel was apologizing at the podium, Nike's marketing division was already asking a different question. Who replaces him as the face of the future? While Cleveland's local media tore apart the stat sheets and replay angles, Nike's headquarters went into silent overdrive. Behind closed doors in Beaverton, Oregon, a select group of executives from the brand strategy, athlete marketing, and endorsement analytics divisions gathered for what one insider later described as an emergency recalibration. They weren't there to discuss a shoe line or a campaign delay. They were there to decide whether one of their most visible athletes still belonged in Nike's future. On the surface, Gabriel's collapse looked like just another bad week in football, but to Nike, it was something deeper. A credibility crisis. The company's entire identity is built on the mythos of winners, of athletes who rise when the moment burns hottest. And as their data analysts replayed Gabriel's footage, measuring fan sentiment, social engagement, and brand alignment metrics, the results were grim. His composure looked shattered, his body language screamed defeat, and the audience that once championed him had turned cold overnight. Within hours, the conversation inside Nike's digital ecosystem shifted. Scheduled promo shoots were quietly canceled. Marketing assets featuring Gabriel were flagged for review. His upcoming Cleveland Grit campaign, a regional push celebrating resilience, was abruptly pulled from the pipeline. The most telling move came days later, when internal design memos confirmed that his custom cleat line, already in final prototype testing, had been placed on indefinite hold. No press release, no statement, just silence. The kind that carries finality. But amid the tension, a different name started circulating across those same conference tables: Shedeur Sanders. His profile wasn't new to Nike's team. He'd been part of a modest NIL arrangement since his college days, leveraging the Sanders family legacy and his growing online influence. But now, he represented something more: stability, composure, and charisma under chaos. Everything Gabriel had just lost.
As one executive reportedly put it, "We're not watching stats, we're watching stories, and Shedeur's story is ascending." That line became the unofficial catalyst. Within 72 hours of Gabriel's disastrous outing, Nike's internal focus had flipped completely. What began as damage control became a mission to build their next generational quarterback. The brand wasn't retreating from football, it was rebranding the position itself. This wasn't gradual. It was decisive, a corporate power move disguised as a marketing adjustment. And while the sports world argued over quarterback ratings and coaching schemes, Nike had already made its choice and sent the first shockwave through the league without saying a single word. While Gabriel's reputation unraveled in real time, Shedeur Sanders' ascent felt almost cinematic. For months, his name hovered just beneath the national spotlight, a promising rookie, still finding his rhythm, biding his time behind the scenes. But within Nike's inner circle, Shedeur wasn't seen as a backup. He was seen as a blueprint, the calm amid chaos, the kind of poised, media-savvy, relentlessly composed athlete that corporate strategists dream of building entire campaigns around. Shedeur already had a small-scale NIL partnership with Nike dating back to his Colorado days, built mostly around his family's magnetic brand power. But what Nike saw now went far beyond nostalgia or name recognition. They saw control. They saw maturity that outshone veterans. They saw a player who didn't chase attention, attention gravitated to him. His press conferences were measured, his social media curated, his confidence never loud, just undeniable. In a franchise drowning in dysfunction, Shedeur represented composure. Executives in Beaverton reportedly described him as the anti-meltdown. Every time Cleveland spiraled, Shedeur stayed locked in. Helmet on, eyes forward, no theatrics, no finger-pointing. And that mattered, because for Nike, the face of a brand can't just perform, it has to embody control when everything around him falls apart. That was the same intangible quality that once made a 19-year-old LeBron irresistible to the company. And now they saw the same spark in Shedeur. Marketing analysts began referring to him internally as Project Prime 2.0, a nod to his father's trailblazing legacy, not to copy it, but to evolve it. Where Dillon Sanders was flash and charisma, Shedeur was refinement and poise. Together, they represented two halves of the same brand narrative: showmanship and structure, legacy and innovation. And Nike knew exactly what that could mean in the long run: generational dominance, passed down from one Sanders to another. Rumors suggest that early mock-ups of Shedeur's campaign materials were already circulating within Nike's creative department before Gabriel's fallout even hit the headlines. The tagline was reportedly simple but chillingly confident: "Work now, talk later." The same line Shedeur would post on Instagram just days after the endorsement news leaked, alongside footage of him training in unreleased Nike cleats. That single post said everything. He didn't need to announce it, He didn't need to explain it. The message was clear. While others were scrambling for validation, Shedeur was already being crowned. Nike wasn't betting on stats, they were betting on presence, and Shedeur Sanders had it in every movement, every word, every look into the camera. In a world obsessed with noise, he mastered silence, and that's exactly what made him the loudest statement Nike had made in years. The moment Nike's decision went public, Dillon Gabriel's entire brand ecosystem began to collapse. Not gradually, but instantly, like a line of dominoes falling in perfect rhythm. One statement from Beaverton, and the ripple reached every corner of Gabriel's career. Deals that once looked stable suddenly turned to dust. Regional sponsors began pulling back, local appearances were postponed indefinitely, and smaller endorsement partners quietly scrubbed their likeness from upcoming campaigns. The silence from his camp said it all. They hadn't just lost a sponsor, they'd lost the one sponsor that mattered most. For years, Nike had served as a stamp of legitimacy. To athletes, that swoosh isn't just a logo, it's validation. It's the unspoken message that you belong among the elite. And when that validation disappears, others follow. Social media metrics confirmed it almost immediately. Engagement on Gabriel's posts dropped by nearly half in a matter of days. The same highlight reels that once drew excitement were now flooded with comments mocking his downfall, fans replacing his hashtag with Sanders' name. Even media outlets that once praised his leadership began quietly shifting coverage towards Shedeur's rise. Behind the scenes, Gabriel's representation agency reportedly entered damage control mode. Internal emails leaked through sports business insiders suggested they were exploring relocation opportunities, new teams, new markets, anything to rebuild value outside Cleveland's collapsing narrative. But rebuilding without Nike's backing was a near impossible task. One Browns marketing consultant put it bluntly, "Once Nike leaves you, it's over." Everyone else reads that as a final verdict. The brutal truth? Gabriel's decline wasn't just about performance, it was about perception. Nike's withdrawal didn't merely expose his slump, it defined it. In the eyes of the industry, a public split from the most influential brand in sports doesn't signal a slump, it signals the end of confidence, both on the field and off it.
And the timing couldn't have been worse. As Gabriel's reputation crumbled, Shedeur's brand value skyrocketed overnight. What was once a quiet QB competition suddenly turned into a cultural referendum, a symbol of old versus new, failure versus promise. Fans stopped asking if Shedeur would take over and started asking when. For Gabriel, every interview, every snap, every sideline moment now carried a different energy, not of hope, but of finality. The same spotlight that once made him marketable was now burning him alive. Because in the brutal world of sports branding, once the swoosh fades, it rarely comes back. The moment the Nike Shedeur story broke, the internet went nuclear. Within minutes, hashtags like Nike chose Shedeur and Gabriel out started trending across X, TikTok, and Instagram. Every sports account, meme page, and podcast clip jumped on the chaos. It wasn't just fans reacting, it was a cultural moment, the kind that blurs the line between football and entertainment. Clips of Shedeur's iconic celebrations were suddenly everywhere, remixed with captions like "the face of the future" and "Nike made the right call." Meanwhile, Gabriel's clips were being used in skits, reaction memes, and breakdowns of his collapse. Sports influencers smelled blood in the water. Channels with millions of followers started dissecting every angle, from Nike's marketing strategy to Gabriel's locker room demeanor. Analysts debated whether this was a smart business decision or a ruthless betrayal. Fans didn't care. They picked sides, and the energy was electric. Shedeur's followers spiked by hundreds of thousands overnight. Every new post from him became an event, every cryptic caption dissected for meaning. Then came the wild theories. Some fans claimed Nike had been planning this for months, pointing out how Shedeur had been quietly featured in behind-the-scenes promos long before the official announcement. Others swore it was revenge, payback for Gabriel's rumored tension with his teammates. Reddit threads exploded with alleged leaks from insiders, Discord servers filled with speculation, and YouTube commentary channels pushed hour-long deep dives filled with screenshots, fan theories, and timelines connecting dots that may or may not have existed. But amid the chaos, one thing became crystal clear. Shedeur Sanders had transcended the game. He wasn't just trending, he was everywhere. SportsCenter clips, fashion accounts, sneaker blogs, even music influencers, all talking about him. Nike had effectively turned him into a cultural event overnight. And as for Gabriel, the internet is rarely kind to those who fall from grace. His mentions were flooded with brutal comments, memes mocking his expressions, and endless reminders of the moment everything shifted. Even when he tried to stay quiet, silence became its own statement, one that fans read as defeat. The digital landscape had spoken, loud and clear. Shedeur wasn't just winning on the field, he had conquered the internet. And in 2025, that's where real influence lives. But the online storm wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a much bigger shift that was about to rattle the entire Browns organization to its core. While the internet was busy turning Shedeur Sanders into a superstar, Cleveland was falling apart from the inside out. What started as a simple endorsement fallout quickly spiraled into full-blown chaos within the Browns organization. Coaches, players, and executives were suddenly at war over something that wasn't even supposed to be football-related. Nike's decision had become the spark that exposed everything wrong beneath the surface. According to insiders, the locker room split almost overnight. Some players rallied behind Shedeur, calling him the spark the team desperately needed. Others defended Dillon Gabriel, arguing that he'd been thrown under the bus before ever getting a fair shot. What should have been a routine week of preparation turned into whispered conversations, cold stares, and tense meetings behind closed doors. Head coach Kevin Stefanski reportedly tried to downplay the drama, insisting the team was focused on football. But that line didn't hold up for long. Players could see what was happening. Shedeur was suddenly getting more attention in practice, more media coverage, more pressure. Cameras followed him every move, and every gesture or smirk from him became viral content. Gabriel, once the quiet leader of the locker room, was now walking into team meetings like a ghost, visible but invisible at the same time. Front office executives didn't help either. Some believed embracing Shedeur was the only logical move for the franchise's future, not just on the field but financially. Merchandise sales tied to him had exploded, ticket demand surged, and the team's social media analytics showed record-breaking engagement whenever his name appeared. Others believed that chasing a marketing wave could destroy team chemistry and alienate veterans already frustrated by the circus surrounding the team. Then came the leaks. Reports began surfacing about heated internal meetings, shouting matches between position coaches, and even a rumored confrontation between Gabriel and a member of the offensive staff. Every story added fuel to the fire. The Browns were no longer a team. They were a headline, a storyline unfolding in real time with the world watching. The tension reached its peak when sources claimed ownership had stepped in, not to calm things down, but to accelerate Shedeur's rise. The message was subtle but unmistakable. He's our future. Act like it. That single line reportedly shattered whatever unity the team had left. Inside Cleveland's walls, trust had evaporated. Players stopped speaking openly in the locker room, coaches avoided press questions about starting lineups. The team felt divided between loyalty and survival. Because in that building, everyone knew one thing. When a player becomes bigger than the team, it's only a matter of time before the team breaks first.
And while the Browns tried to keep the public face calm, the storm inside was growing louder by the day. The only question left was how long they could keep pretending everything was fine before it all finally exploded. What happened next went far beyond football. It became a full-blown cultural moment. The Shedeur Sanders takeover wasn't just about one quarterback replacing another, it was about a generational shift in power, image, and influence. Suddenly, Shedeur wasn't just the Browns' future, he was the face of a new movement that blurred the lines between athlete, brand, and icon. From college highlight reels to primetime interviews, Shedeur's rise had already been building momentum, but Nike's move turned that wave into a tsunami. Within days, sneaker drops, music collaborations, and pop culture tie-ins started surfacing online. He wasn't being treated like a rookie, he was being positioned as a lifestyle figure. Major influencers began referencing him in content. Fashion blogs picked up his off-field looks, and hip-hop artists started shouting him out in lyrics. It wasn't just sports anymore, it was a movement. Meanwhile, fans began drawing comparisons to other cultural flashpoints. Jordan signing with Nike, LeBron's decision, Dillon Sanders' swagger in the 90s. The younger generation saw Shedeur as a symbol of confidence, control, and unapologetic ambition. The embodiment of a new kind of athlete who didn't just play the game, but owned the narrative around it. Even established veterans started taking notice. Some praised his discipline and polish, others called it calculated branding. But no one could deny the impact. Shedeur had done something almost impossible. He turned the fallout from a broken locker room into a global statement about identity, youth, and power in modern sports. Cultural analysts started describing it as the Shedeur effect, the moment when the athlete stopped being the product and became the platform. Every brand wanted to align with his confidence, every young player wanted to mimic his calm under pressure, and every old-school critic couldn't stop talking about him. And Nike? They knew exactly what they had done. This wasn't just about a quarterback switch, it was about planting their flag in the future of sports culture. They'd bet everything on a player who represented not just talent, but transformation. The result was seismic. A rookie quarterback had managed to redefine what it meant to be an athlete in the modern era, not just through playmaking, but through influence. What Shedeur represented was bigger than Cleveland, bigger than the Browns, and maybe even bigger than football itself. But for every cultural shift, there's a price. Because when one man's rise redefines the game, someone or something always has to fall. And that's exactly what Cleveland was about to face next. Once the dust began to settle, the sports world turned its attention to the numbers, and that's where the real debate began. Analysts, insiders, and fans started digging into every measurable stat, every metric, and every market signal to understand what had just happened. Was Nike's decision to side with Shedeur Sanders really about talent, or was it all about business? The data painted a story that was hard to ignore. Within 48 hours of Nike announcing the partnership, online sales for merchandise linked to Shedeur spiked by over 260%. His jersey became one of the top-selling items in the NFL shop, outselling several veteran stars. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel's merchandise plummeted by nearly 80%. Engagement analytics told the same story. Shedeur's name was generating 10 times more interactions across social media than Gabriel's, with spikes every time he appeared in interviews, commercials, or practice footage. But the on-field data mattered too, and that's where the debate deepened. Sports analysts pointed out that, statistically, Gabriel wasn't performing terribly. His completion rate and decision-making numbers were average, not disastrous. Yet, when compared to Shedeur's precision, leadership, and clutch presence, the contrast became glaring. Fans weren't just responding to numbers, they were responding to energy. Shedeur had what analysts called the aura factor, that intangible sense of control and charisma that makes audiences believe in him even before the play begins.
Still, not everyone was buying the hype. Critics argued that Nike's decision had more to do with marketability than merit, that Shedeur's brand, not his stats, drove the switch. They pointed to social media algorithms, audience demographics, and sponsorship data, showing a growing preference for younger, flashier athletes who could move culture as much as they could move the chains. To them, this wasn't a football story at all. It was a marketing war disguised as one. Meanwhile, sports economists weighed in with cold, hard math. Nike's investment in Shedeur was already paying off. Their online engagement rates had doubled since the campaign's launch, and early projections estimated that his brand could generate over $150 million in value for the company within the first year alone. Gabriel, by contrast, had seen a steep decline in public sentiment, with surveys showing a 62% drop in fan favorability. That's when the conversation shifted. It wasn't just who was better, it was what defines better in the modern era. Was it skill, performance, market power, influence? Shedeur represented the intersection of all four, and that made him the perfect storm for the modern sports economy. In short, the data backed the drama. The numbers proved what fans had already felt. The game had changed. Success wasn't just measured in touchdowns anymore. It was measured in engagement, impact, and cultural reach. And in that new world, Shedeur Sanders wasn't just winning. He was redefining what winning looked like. But as the debate raged on, one thing became undeniable. Nike's gamble had paid off, and the ripple effects were only beginning. Because if one player could shift the data, the culture, and the league's balance of power all at once, then maybe this wasn't just a marketing win. Maybe it was the start of a revolution. In the end, this was never just about football. It was about symbolism, about what happens when the most powerful brand in sports decides to draw a line and choose a side. Nike didn't just end a contract, it made a statement that reverberated through every locker room, front office, and fan base across the league. When the swoosh speaks, it doesn't comment on the scoreboard, it defines the era. By backing Shedeur Sanders, Nike effectively rewrote the narrative of Cleveland's quarterback saga. What once felt like an internal coaching dilemma instantly became a national referendum on potential, image, and leadership. Dillon Gabriel's struggles might have triggered the decision, but Shedeur's presence gave it meaning. Calm under pressure, precise in execution, and polished in every public moment, he embodied everything Nike wanted the future of football to look like: confident, composed, and culturally magnetic. The message was unmistakable. In a league that measures everything, from arm strength to analytics, Nike reminded everyone that perception is power. The swoosh doesn't wait for results, it creates them. Its endorsement of Shedeur wasn't a reward for what he's already achieved, it was an investment in what he's destined to become. And that's what separates icons from athletes. Inside Cleveland, the aftershocks continue to ripple. Coaches are under pressure, fans are divided, and the locker room pulse beats with anticipation. But outside the walls of the stadium, something bigger is happening. Nike just made Shedeur Sanders the face of tomorrow, and in doing so, turned a corporate decision into a cultural movement. Because every generation has its defining moment, and this was one of them. A contract torn, a new one signed, and a silent message that echoed louder than any press conference. When the swoosh speaks, the world listens.